order. This is a closed portion of the Orangeville Town Council for December the 6th, 2021. May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Post. All in favor? I have a pecuniary interest in a matter 4.2 that's part of the closed meeting, so I'll be stepping away. But prior to that, we need to nominate a chair to look after the closed portion of the meeting. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, I would like to nominate Councillor Andrews to chair that meeting if everyone seems to
have a seconder for that? Councillor Post. Anybody else want to run for that? Okay, all in favor? All right, well, with that, I'm going to leave the meeting now. And Karen, if you can text me when 4.2 is complete, and I'll come back for 4.3.
So what, Mr. Mayor, we will just need to do the motion to move into closed if you, and the reasons for it, if we can do that as part of the open agenda, and then we'll have to convene into my invite once that's completed, please.
Yes. Okay, councillors, we have a motion to move into close. This is for items 4.2, a confidential verbal report from town solicitors, Richie Ketchison, Hart and Biggert regarding 41 William Street, and also a confidential verbal report from Colleen Butler, town solicitor regarding vaccination policy update. We have a motion to move into close, please. Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? All right, there you go, folks. We'll see you in a bit.
Okay.
We're going to start our open session of Town of Orangeville Council meeting for Monday, December 6th. Council has already taken part in a closed session a little bit earlier this evening. Let's start with our singing of our national anthem. Mr. Bonato. We're not hearing it, Mr. Bonato.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, Canada. Oh, Canada, a home and native land, true
Councillors, are you hearing anything?
patron love.
No, not at all.
Nope. Okay, I think that'll work. Yeah, go ahead. Thank you, sir.
Oh, Canada, a home and native land, true patron love, in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
All right, thank you. We would also like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and the Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Earlier tonight, we had a closed session of council, and during that closed session, we had approved the closed council minutes of the November 22nd, 2021 meeting, and that there was a confidential verbal report from the town solicitors, Ritchie, Ketchison, Hart, and Biggert, regarding 41 William Street, an appeal of council's failure to pass a zoning bylaw amendment regarding litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and that report be received. And that
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just for us in terms of recording the closed session reporting out on that particular item, and there is that, and that staff proceed as directed. And if for that particular item, if I could suggest that Councillor Andrews chair and just call a vote on that one, and then we proceed to receive the other report, if that's okay with you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right. So Councillor Andrews, as chair, can you call a vote on that particular item, sir?
I shall do so, Your Worship. I would like to call a vote on this particular matter. Those in favor? Those opposed? And for the record, Madam Clerk, I guess we identify that Councillor Post and Councillor Taylor did not vote in favor of this particular item.
Right.
And if I may, Mr. Councillor Andrews, as chair,
Yes.
just clarify that we'll separate the vote out on that particular matter as it relates to the report from the town solicitor versus the actual minutes.
Okay, that's, well, as opposed to trying to repeat exactly what you've said, you've just said what you have to in your particular role. So now we move to our second vote. Is that correct, Madam Chair?
Yeah, Mr. or Councillor Andrews, I should say, if we could just take a vote now just on the closed minutes so that it's just clear that there was an opposition
Understood.
with respect to the minutes. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you. I'd like to call a vote on the closed minutes. Those in favor? Seeing no opposition, we move forward with that. Madam Clerk, I presume I am complete with what my responsibility is at this
Yes,
time.
thank you. Thank you, Councillor Andrews, and I will now go over to Mayor Brown for the vote on the other matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay, so moving on to the second item, which I believe was 4.3. So let me get my 4.3, and that a confidential verbal report from Colleen Butler, Town Solicitor, regarding vaccination policy update, and staff regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, be received, and that staff proceed as directed. You have a motion on that item, please? Councillor Peters, second by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item 10, this is adoption of minutes of a previous council meeting. So the minutes of November the 22nd, 2021. We have a motion to receive those minutes, please. Receive and approve those minutes. Councillor Post, second by Councillor Taylor. All in favor? Thank you. All right, moving on to item 11. These are presentations, petitions, and delegations. Our first presentation, 11.1, is Deborah Martin Downs and Jeff Payne of Credit Valley Conservation. This is regarding the annual budget for CVC. Ms. Martin Downs and Mr. Payne, over to you.
Good evening, Mayor Brown and members of council. Nice to see you all. And I believe you are going to put the presentation up. Is that correct?
Staff, are we putting the presentation up?
I believe the presentation was going to be shared by the staff at the conservation.
Oh,
Okay. Sorry, I thought when we sent it up, I thought you were doing it, but I can do that. Just give me a second. Oh, goodness. And all right, can you see that okay?
yes, we can.
Okay. Oops, have you seen, have I taken it off of presentation mode? Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
There we
Goodness. Ah, it's touchy tonight.
Mhm.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Mayor Brown, members of council, and nice to be here again. And unfortunately, this will be my last budget presentation for you. It's very, very touchy. It's my final budget presentation. I'm retiring at the end of the month after 8 lovely years with Credit Valley, and so this will be my last one. And so yeah, treat us gently tonight. With me tonight as well is Jeff Payne. He's Director of Corporate Services and Deputy CAO. The new CAO will be joining us on Friday. His name is Quentin Henchard. He comes to us from Toronto Conservation Authority. So we'll be getting to know him shortly. All right, so we're going to just quickly go through some of our accomplishments this year and some of the activities we'll be undertaking in 2022, our 2022 budget, of course, and then budget pressures. So one of the things that I wanted to speak to you a little bit about today was just just to give you this sense of overview of what we have in front of what CBC does. At the time of putting this presentation together, we had 271 employees, many of whom are your residents. They engage with your staff and with your residents. They are dedicated to what they do in the environment, and they're an important piece of our community. We've got a significant number of things that we've been doing this year, including acquiring land. We've got 114 kilometers of trail. We've had over 1 million park visitors this year, you'll hear about. So as we go into the CA Act discussions that are coming up, we just want to remind you of the important role that we play. One of our counselors says we are boots on the ground, fingers in the soil, and hands in the water. And if it's not us that does this work, who else will it be? There is regulations coming through the Conservation Authorities Act, and Jeff's been working on the working group with Conservation Ontario and a number of other CAs and stakeholders to try and improve the regulations as we've seen them coming out for the province. And certainly the regulations as we receive them, we're quite pleased with how they've recognize the various activities that we have on our books. But as we go into the next year and a half of negotiating our MOUs with you, I would challenge you to think about the things that you want us to do with you and what the Conservation Authority can do for your community, and not to be intimidated by the MOUs and the regulations and the requirements. Is it more, what are the outcomes that we seek to drive through our relationship with yourselves and the Conservation Authority? So I'll challenge you to do that. I'll get off my soapbox now and move along. All right, so we're going to talk a bit about the accomplishments in 2021 and 2022. Certainly, we've continued to do a significant number of activities over this past year. We did have just one event in Orangeville with a number of residents coming out to help us tree plant, but we hope to get back to doing more of those normal things in the future. We've been working with farmers and rural residents. Oh, famers, apparently we've made an error there. Sorry about that. We've been working with them to undertake on their property. And it wasn't just homeowners who were looking to do renovations on their property. We actually had a 50% uptake, greater uptake on our programs to assist farmers for improvements to their land. So we've got over 218 projects finished and another 50 in the hopper across the watershed to deal with property improvements with rural landowners and farmers. One of the big threats, and I know Orangeville has seen this in some of your drinking water quality as well, is salt, and whether it's salt from roads, or in your case you have salt from water softeners. But we've been working very closely with municipal partners on road salt and trying to come up with better ways, more ingenious ways of trying to deal with road salt runoff in the environment. There was a workshop held earlier this year with over 45 municipal partners looking at ways to improve the actions that you're taking in your salt management plans, and hopefully that the results of that workshop will help you to update. We've also been dealing with flood risk and floodplain mapping, of course, in Orangeville, and we've been working on with your folks, and I think we've made some really strong progress, and we're continuing to do this both on in 2022 on Menorah Creek, and this is Mill Creek here. We've spent a fair amount of time over COVID getting our digital tools improved, and our website was relaunched recently with a more user-friendly frontage with for accessibility. It also has a number of online tools, including you can apply for permits there. You can look at floodplain mapping. You can look at your drinking water source protection mapping. So there's a lot of good tools. And one of the things we're very proud about is the story map tool that is telling the stories of our integrated watershed monitoring program and how it has the trends over time. And so you can see those stories on a story map on the website. So I encourage you to check it out. We've had a tremendous amount of demand for recreation. I think everybody has seen that over COVID. So it just gives you a sense of some of the lineups that you've seen happening. We've had record visitation. So this is showing you all CBC parks and the change in Island Lake Park as well. So from January to September, pre-COVID and during COVID. So from 2020 to 2021, we had a 47% increase year over year. And you can see the increase from 2019 over the same time period. We have been very fortunate to receive some financing from the Infrastructure Canada Investing in Infrastructure program, and we've been upgrading boardwalks and signage for residents to find their way better, including for the Credit Valley Trail. So we've now got signage out on the trail as our first wayfinding for that. And of course, at Island Lake, we've been investing significantly in new infrastructure. So we've got 2 new picnic pavilions, our brand new covered bridge that's just been finished, and of course, our natural playground that we launched last year, which has had great success. And we've been planning for the future of Island Lake Conservation Area, and that is we've been doing a management plan. We've had a number of stakeholder engagement activities. There's some really spectacular work that's been done on this, and I can't thank staff enough for the time and effort they've put into doing this. These are some of the images from the management plan. First off, I would say that we have continued to protect the wetlands and the lake and the forest areas on the property. We're looking at modernizing the entrances so that we don't have the people queuing up down the road. On the left picture, you'll see a concept for a new visitor center on the point, and moving some of our docking, renaturalizing the shoreline. It's really going to be a spectacular location when it's all said and done. It is now, and it's going to be better when we're all finished. One of the things that's really exciting about it is it will be the trailhead for the Credit Valley Trail, and there is the crane gathering space has been designed by an Indigenous firm and it's an Indigenous placemaking spot in Island Lake, and it's going to be just a beautiful place once it's all finished. We have also some additional event space coming and another pavilion that we'd like to build as well. So. Over time, this is going to take the staff have outlined a 15-year plan for the management plan, but it is I think it'll be worth it in the long run, including some new space for staff. As you know, they're housed in trailers up there without any washroom facilities, and so I think it'll be it's about time that they got into some new space themselves. And to tie all of our plans together, we're continuing to work on our watershed plan, and it will build in as well the results and recommendations from Sub-19 that we completed last year. The watershed plan is meant to be both looking back at what we've accomplished since 1956, the kind of environmental change that's occurred, as well as looking at what the characterization of today would be, and then predicting out to the future of what will be occurring in the watershed with climate change, with growth, with restoration activities, to look at how much and where we apply various measures to protect, connect, and sustain the watershed. So we'll get on to the budget. So this is the budget overview with the current value assessment changes for Orangeville. Orangeville's highlighted. You can see you've had a slight reduction in your CVA at 0.34%, which has a negative $1,000 effect on the budget. This is your general levy calculation. So based on the CVA, your apportionment of 2.3% for funding of $243,789, and that's a 2.9% increase. Our general overview, our general levy average is 3.3%. We have this is your share of both the general levy and the special shared levy. So the special shared levy is, presentation. A second. Can you see it still? Yes. Okay. There we go. All right. I got it back. The Orangeville share, of course, of the general levy is 2.9%, and then the special shared levy, which is what we use for watershed plans and outreach and education programs, is calculated at $58,726, or $2,700 increase and 5% change over year. So your total budget for 2022 will be $302,515. Which is a change of $9,700 or 3.3%. So the budget that we're presenting is business as usual. It maintains our current program capacity. It's under the existing CA regulations, not the future ones at this point. It sustains our current service levels. It contributes to our reserves. It maintains for our state of good repair for our assets. It also includes our total compensation for staff, including the cost of living increases and any step increases, as well as annualizing the compensation review we undertook in 2020 and implemented in 2021. And of course, Jeff and his team continue to find a lot of cost savings when they're renegotiating some of our vendor assignments. This is pie chart that just shows you the source of our funding, municipal funding being about 52% and some recoveries at 30%, user fees at 17%. And I'll draw your attention to the provincial funding at 0.1% or 0.5% rather, of just under $100,000, which basically doesn't cover one person to work in the organization and carry out the programs that they are asking us to do. And this is the forecast for 2023 and beyond. For 2023, we're forecasting a 3.5% increase across the board. This isn't just specific to Orangeville. The future years with the Conservation Authorities Act will take place as of January 1st, 2024. And so we will have to redo our budgets and put various programs into new buckets of whether it was provincially mandated, whether it's programs that you wish to have us do as part of our Category 2, or it basically are shared levy kind of projects. And those, we have to shift the whole budget around, so we really don't know what the future projection will look like at this time. But we will be back talking to staff and yourselves about that in the coming year. And we just like to always spend a moment talking just about budget pressures a little bit. We were very fortunate, as I mentioned, in getting the investing in Canada Infrastructure Program funding for a lot of our parks and open space work. We're hoping that there will be plenty more. They've provided a 73% portion, the feds in the province, against our 24% or 26% rather portion. So it's been a really big boon for us to get some significant work done. We're not asking you for any funding to support that at this time, but as those programs come along in the future, we need to keep in mind that we have a significant investment we want to make at Island Lake, and we're expecting that the province and the feds will be seeing a need to invest in recreational infrastructure, given the importance of that infrastructure during pandemic. So I'm hoping that if we hear of things, or if there's an opportunity to share a submission with Orangeville, we would be more than happy to work with you to do so. And we're seeing huge inflation pressures, as I'm sure you are. So we can't anticipate that we're going to be able to keep the bottom line too low in the coming years as well, just because of both the drain on talent, the costs for we saw huge lumber costs earlier this year that drove the prices of our programs up. So we're hoping we can keep things under control, but with the parks in particular, where we hire a lot of young staff who are making the sort of minimum wage or just barely better than that, we found that we had a real hard time fulfilling those positions this past year alone. And with the wage increase recently, we'll probably find needing to expand the wages for our entry-level positions. So with that, I just want to thank you for all your support over the last 8 years. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I hope you'll keep working with our staff to make all the good outcomes happen in Orangeville. So with that, Jeff and I will be happy to take any questions.
Right. Well, on behalf of Town Council and the residents of Orangeville and our local area, I want to thank you, Deborah, for your 8 years of service. The organization's grown significantly through your time, and so I'd like to thank you for everything that you've done for the organization. I just, before I turn it over to some councilors, I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts that I had. The MOU that's coming up, there seems to be some continuing concern about turnaround on comments, on planning issues and other issues. And I'm just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit. Is this a budgetary thing, or can it be solved with budget, or is it deeper than that? And in terms of matching up your comments with what might be under the Planning Act, for instance, or other comments that are required by stakeholders such as yourself on just matters of issues of infrastructure improvement or development issues in our area.
Thank you for the question, Mayor Brown. I will say two things. One is that we do tracking of our timelines. Josh Campbell, who's our Director of Planning and Development Services, has been working very hard to make sure that we can track and identify where we can do better. We have been tracking our permitting applications, where we have the control over how quickly those things go. Planning Act applications, we don't always have the control. With the permitting, we are at 98% compliance with the timelines that we set out. So we're pretty happy with that timing. But with the planning review comments, it's a little harder, partly because sometimes we don't get all the documents at the same time. Sometimes we're getting we have information that's not consistent with another piece, so the engineering doesn't say the same thing as the environment. So sometimes we have to go back and forth a bit. We have had some staffing issues of late, but those are fairly recent. So if these are sort of lingering issues, I wouldn't think that they have affected that at this time. So the other part that I would say is that we are often pushing a rock uphill, trying to get certain things happening. But if there's ever or certain mitigation or other actions happening with a project. So if there's ever an issue, please feel free to reach out, because sometimes staff are trying to prioritize and they don't maybe know there may be some deadline coming up that they're not aware of. And we'd certainly be happy to try and work that through much more quickly. So, so do feel free anytime. It won't be me now, but if you can get me in the next 2 weeks, you can. I'll push that along. But if and Councillor Peters is always welcome to reach out on your behalf as well. And often, as people were coming into when we were having in-person meetings, we'd often have little side meetings with planners and the councillors to make sure things were moving along happily. So it's been a little more difficult the last little bit, but do feel free to reach out.
Great. And one more quick follow-up. Is the special levy something that is just this year, or is it embedded now in your budgeting?
Well, you have something called a special shared levy, and that is CVA apportioned as well. And as far as I don't know how it originally was. It was that way when I arrived, so I'm not sure how it was originally described, but that's basically a levy that is supported, I'm going to say 94% by Peel, because it's shared with them as well. So you benefit from having that levy. So you have general levy that we levy you for, and then the shared levy is more of an agreed levy, but that's, and maybe Jeff, I don't know if you want to say anything further about it.
Yeah, I think the shared special levy recognizes there are certain areas of priority or projects that needed to be advanced on an ongoing basis, and there just wasn't capacity within the general levy to carry out all those functions as expeditiously as the municipalities would have liked. So the shared special levy was put in place to actually build out the capacity of the organization to make sure we could deliver on the municipal priorities and do so in a timely manner. So it has been a long-standing thing, and it will certainly be something as the CA Act regulation changes come through and we start to look at the levy structure. We'll be looking for opportunities to simplify the entire levy process and make it clear to the municipal partners exactly what all these funding buckets are. So that'll be an ongoing story as we enter into MOU discussions.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. Councillor Andrews, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening, members of the CBC, Ms. Martin Downs and Mr. Payne. Ms. Martin Downs, congratulations on your pending retirement too as well. I was very impressed with the documentation that was forwarded to Council. I know that the Mayor has in fact asked a couple of questions pertaining to the finances and the levy itself, but I was impressed by some of the breadth of projects that you have coming up, including clean water, health of the watershed, natural heritage system, public safety, which is very close to my heart as well, the asset management that falls, I guess, under your jurisdiction, Mr. Payne. I was also impressed by, you had mentioned the connection to our farmers and those that are potentially connected to the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. I would assume that there's a connection there at some point. Also, I think, top of mind is we're very much aware of what's transpired on the West Coast, climate change. I'm so pleased that Councillor Peters is representing Council on your board. But, the youth of our society are really the future of our society. And many that I get a chance to speak with talk about the impact of climate change. And so I have two questions, one of which is, your plans for, pending changes that may happen in our climate and the impact it may have on the assets that you have. And then I'll also have a follow-up question as well.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews, for that question. We have been working very hard on a number of climate change related activities. So one is looking at the flows and so for example, for Island Lake, what will happen in drought scenarios for the lake. And the team is looking at how they can modify the outflow to maintain the permit to take water and the flushing requirements downstream, but as well as to hold back more water. And again, we had a droughty year this year. We had a droughty year the year before. It's coming more frequently, and so we definitely have to look at new tools and new ways of being able to manage the dam and the discharge. The floodplain mapping work that we're doing is all modeled with an additional climate lens. The difficulty for us right now is that the province hasn't come out with guidance about how they want us to incorporate climate change into our floodplain mapping. And that's something that's been lagging for a good decade at this point. So we are assessing it with our tools and our knowledge, but it doesn't have the stamp of approval, if you will say, by the province. So we're doing those things. Of course, we continue with tree planting and other mitigation measures as well. And then with the building that we are doing at the park, we are always looking to build back better, if you will. So we've had tornado warnings in that area and trying to make sure that things are good and solid. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to add anything about measures in the parks or not.
No, absolutely. Thank you. The ISIP funding that we've received this year has been really a catalyst for us to move forward on a lot of capital projects to make sure they are climate resilient. So, situations where we're replacing boardwalks, we're building them higher in different locations using different technology. It's the same with stream crossings and the like. Any opportunity we get back through our capital infrastructure and state of good repair work, we're always looking at the impacts of climate change down the road and trying to ensure that we mitigate ahead of time to the extent we can. So it's on our mind at all times and certainly involved in all of our decision making.
Great, thank you. And Your Worship, I have one more question.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Great, thank you. And again, thank you for your comments regarding climate change. Very much top of mind on for many of us these days. The other is, of course, your asset management. And I saw the renderings in your presentation there about some of the forward thinking that you have for, I call it one of the key assets that we have in our community, which is Island Lake. And some of my other members of council also have representation on some of their portfolios regarding culture, tourism, myself with business economic development, and this is a big one for us, and it's an important asset. Timelines for some of that, you referenced Ms. Martin Downs on the possibility of this happening within the 15-year period. Is there any way that we could maybe expedite that, or?
I would love that. I think they were trying to be a little bit realistic about managing the timelines and expectations, but perhaps Jeff, you want to speak. This is under Jeff's portfolio, so I'll let Jeff speak to the if he's prepared to wind it up.
Well, it's great to hear that enthusiasm, and we always hear that enthusiasm in Orangeville as it relates to Island Lake. So you're a great partner community with us. Right from the various service groups to just the kids out helping us with their nickels and dimes. It all makes a difference, and it's very much appreciated. The plan, we have to be realistic. We're trying to project out the funding envelopes that we're currently aware of and how we might be able to fund and build these things. But one of the things I've really driven over the last few years is making sure when we have these concept ideas that we take them to the point of having a plan on the shelf so that when those funding announcements come out, we're ready to go with a project. And we demonstrated that success in spades this year at Bell Fountain in the town of Caledon, where we had been working away diligently for a number of years. We had that project teed up just like a golf ball. And when the funding came, it was a no-brainer for the federal government to fund us because we've proven ourselves. We have an outstanding track record with both the province and the federal government of if you give us the money, we'll get it done. And that's the kind of organization we want to continue to represent going forward. And hopefully those funding envelopes become available for Island Lake, and we can tee up that same golf ball and hopefully get a hole in one and move forward.
I do like the golf metaphor there. Thank you for that.
We welcome your help in getting this done faster. Absolutely.
Yeah. I also look forward to getting on the ice for some ice fishing a little later on this winter too as well. But thank you so much for your comments and also being a part of our meeting this evening.
All right, councillors, any other questions or comments for Ms. Martin Downs or Mr. Payne? Seeing none, I want to thank you again for joining us tonight and presenting your budget. We appreciate it. All the best.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. All right. Good night.
Good night. All right, moving on our agenda, we've got 11.2, Orangeville Hydro Limited Business Plan Presentation. Mr. Rob Kokoch, President of Orangeville Hydro. Welcome, Mr. Kokoch, and looking forward to hearing your report, sir.
Thank you for having us, Your Worship. Is it all right if I share my slides?
Please.
Wonderful. Okay, just confirm that you can see it.
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, thank you, Your Worship, and thank you to all members of council and the entire town of Orangeville for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My name is Rob Kokoch. I'm the president of Orangeville Hydro. I have the honor of presenting the 2022 to 2026 business plans on behalf of Orangeville Hydro's board of directors. I'd like to first mention why we are discussing Orangeville Hydro's business plan. This process starts with our unanimous shareholders agreement. This agreement is a tri-party agreement between the town of Orangeville, the town of Grand Valley, and Orangeville Hydro Limited. The agreement establishes the principles of governance relating to Orangeville Hydro as a corporation. Section 7.1 of the agreement states that the business plan will be subject to majority shareholder approval. That's why we're here this evening, to present the business plan with the goal of obtaining approval from the town of Orangeville in its capacity as a shareholder. And kind of also stepping back, I'd like to mention who and what Orangeville Hydro is. We are the local distribution company for the town of Orangeville and the town of Grand Valley. Our long-standing mission is to provide safe, reliable, efficient delivery of electrical energy while being accountable to our shareholders, the citizens of Orangeville and Grand Valley. Orangeville Hydro's history dates back to 1917 as the Hydroelectric Commission of the town of Orangeville. Orangeville Hydro is licensed by the Ontario Energy Board to operate as an electrical utility within the current boundaries of the town of Orangeville and the former village of Grand Valley. Successful service area amendments have allowed Orangeville Hydro to grow our service area beyond the original limits of the former village of Grand Valley. In addition to being an electrical distributor, Orangeville Hydro provides water and wastewater billing services and streetlight maintenance services to the town of Grand Valley and the town of Orangeville. From a customer perspective, Orangeville Hydro has 7 main customer classes. They are residential, general service less than 50 kilowatts, general service greater than 50 kilowatts, sentinel lights, street lights, unmetered scattered loads, and generation accounts. Orangeville Hydro has a steadily growing base of residential customers, with new subdivisions being energized in both Orangeville and Grand Valley. There's also redevelopment and intensification occurring in both communities. These intensification projects will continue to increase the customer density, which leads to more efficient use of our existing infrastructure. Orangeville Hydro has a diverse commercial sector as well as a large industrial customer base in the plastics manufacturing and food product manufacturing sectors. Orangeville Hydro's corporate performance is tracked by the Ontario Energy Board on an annual basis. Our historical performance is shown on our publicly available scorecard. The scorecard tracks our performance in categories such as service quality, customer satisfaction, safety, system reliability, asset management, cost control, connection of renewable generation, and financial ratios. Within these categories, there are 21 specific measures on the scorecard. The scorecard does show that Orangeville Hydro is meeting or exceeding all industry targets as well as the distributor-specific targets. Also, our historical results are trending in the appropriate direction overall. It is our plan to maintain this performance and these results in the years to come. I'd like to speak about Orangeville Hydro's rates that our customers pay each month. Orangeville Hydro's mission statement and strategic objectives both speak to providing cost-efficient service to our customers. To gauge how we are performing, we compare ourselves to our peers. Luckily, the Ontario Energy Board compiles a publicly available yearbook, which contains various financial and non-financial statistics of all the electrical utilities in the province. This yearbook allows us to compare ourselves to the 59 other LDCs in Ontario. In 2020, our distribution revenue per customer throughout the year on average was $437. According to the yearbook data, Orangeville Hydro currently sits as the 14th most cost-effective LDC. Looking forward now, Table 9 on page 22 of the business plan shows the proposed rates and expected revenues from all our customers in 2022. Specifically, this table includes the distribution revenues that we receive from the fixed service charge and the distribution volumetric rate on our customers' monthly bill. Looking at the top right of the table, you'll see that since 2019, our distribution revenue from a residential customer has been a fixed flat rate charge. This brings stability to residential bills as well as to Orangeville Hydro's revenue. Down in the right-hand corner of the table, the 2022 distribution revenue forecasted from all our customers is just over $5.9 million. These distribution revenues fund our capital expenditures, our operating, maintenance, and administrative expenses, as well as our debt repayments. Capital expenditures are required to ensure the distribution system operates safely and reliably. They are also required to expand our system to connect new customers. Looking forward, we project our capital expenditures to be 2.28 million in 2022, ranging from 2.2 million to 2.9 million in the following 4 years. And then looking across the full 2014 to 2026 timeline, you can see that system access projects have significant swings from year to year. System access projects are projects that are related to connecting new customers, new developments, and so they are difficult to predict. And we're reliant on when the subdivisions connect, which are it's more related to housing market and the developers' timelines than what we can budget for. System renewal expenditures, they are due to the replacement of major assets such as poles, transformers, switches, switching cubicles, and revenue meters that have reached their end of life. System service expenditures are significantly driven by Orangeville Hydro's voltage conversion program that will continue throughout the duration of this 5-year forecast. General plant expenditures consist of non-distribution assets such as vehicles, tools, IT equipment, and building improvements. Table 14 on page 32 of the business plan shows our operating, maintenance, and administrative expenses by year and by type. Our OM&A, operating, maintenance, and administrative expenditure forecast for 2022 is 3.6 million. In the following 4 years, we've forecasted these expenses to increase to account for inflationary increases, as well as costs due to an increasing number of customers to serve. In that forecast from 2023 to 2026, our assumptions were we assumed an increase in most operating costs using an inflationary amount of 2% per year, other than union compensation, which is based on our collective agreement out to 2023. The headcount remains steady at a level of 19 employees going forward into the 5-year connection horizon after 2021. We also compare our OM&A costs to the provincial average. Our OM&A costs per customer historically have been lower than the provincial average. This is due to a steadily increasing customer base, while our OM&A expenses have been staying at fairly consistent levels. Orangeville Hydro operates its business with a lean amount of employees. We rank 16th in the province with 637 customers per employee. The provincial average is lower at 533 customers per employee. Orangeville Hydro currently employs 19 full-time employees, as I mentioned, and this number of employees is expected to remain consistent throughout this business plan. Now, this will be the last slide I'll be speaking to this evening. This is our financial forecast summary, table 18 on page 36. Energy sales are pass-through commodity costs. That's the top line, energy sales. They're mainly pass-through costs to the IESO. They're budgeted to increase year over year due to inflationary increases to the electricity rates, load growth due to an increase in customers, as well as an increase in regulatory variance recoveries. These values were conservatively based on our 2020 electricity sales, which saw significantly higher revenue than historical due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Distribution revenue is Orangeville Hydro's revenue to fund our operating, maintenance, and administrative expenses. That's the second line down. And so, yeah, as mentioned, these fund our OM&A expenses, our capital projects, as well as our debt financing obligations. The distribution revenue is expected to grow in 2022 based on a forecasted customer growth from new connections, as well as the inflationary rate increase based on our existing rate application with the Ontario Energy Board. Beyond 2022, the distribution revenue is planned to increase due to customer growth and future inflation-based rate increases through the OEB rate applications. In regards to debt, in 2022, Orangeville Hydro plans to borrow 2.5 million to sustain our capital projects and to fund regulatory-related payments, such as increasing Hydro 1 low voltage network and connection charges and the fluctuating global adjustment rates. The Hydro 1 low voltage charges can have a significant impact on Orangeville Hydro's cash balance, as there's a large lag between the moment when Orangeville Hydro pays these costs to Hydro 1 and when we are approved in a future rate application to recoup these pass-through costs from our customers. That 2022 loan will take our debt equity ratio to 54-46, a small deviation from the OEB deemed structure of 60-40. In regards to dividends, since incorporation, Orangeville Hydro has provided $21.2 million to our shareholders through regular dividends and special dividend payments. That's being $20.7 million to the town of Orangeville and $487,000 to the town of Grand Valley. The business plan forecasts over $2 million in shareholder dividends over the next 5 years. In conclusion, Orangeville Hydro plans to continue to meet our mission statement of providing safe, reliable, efficient electricity to our customers while being accountable to our shareholders. We also plan to continually improve on our positive performance shown within the OEB scorecard and yearbook. So on behalf of everyone at Orangeville Hydro, including our staff and board of directors, I'd like to thank you to the opportunity to present this evening. And that concludes my comments.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Coco. It's a joy to hear your reports. They're always excellent, and it's nice to see the comparison between the other LDCs in Ontario and Orangeville Hydro. You always rank well against that. Councillors, Councillor Andrews, and then Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Taylor was first.
I'm sorry, Councillor Taylor. Go ahead, sir.
Councillor Andrews, always so nice. Thank you, Mr. Coco. It's really nice to see you. And it was, just so you know, I thought your video turned off during your presentation. We saw a black mark, so it was probably the best you've looked on a presentation night previously. Anyway, in all seriousness, I'm wondering if we could go back to that page with the financials. And it's always so interesting to look through. And I would echo the comments of the mayor, and that is always a pleasure to hear your report. And please take my comments as interest, not criticism. I always find the business model interesting. And when you look across, I see, like, I guess my question to you would be is, what do you see as the most important financial piece on here? And for me, as I do a quick scan and I look at a business that isn't as familiar to me, it's not innate to me, I would look at the dividends and suggest that it's almost too bad. In my mind, I don't see the dividends going up the same amount that the sales are going up. When I look at the energy sales, now I see there's other expenses here, but I would almost expect that percentage would go lock in step. And then the second thing I would look at is the return on equity. And it looks like we were grand today. We're doing a fantastic job. And as I see it, we start to decline as time goes on. And I assume that's because we're having depreciation and having to reinvest. But those are where my eyes go. I'd be curious what your thoughts are on those three things. And also, what is it that you look at to say that this business is healthy and that you're doing really, really well? Where would you go? Yeah, well, let's talk about the forward looking. Oh, yeah, perfect. So on the forward-looking statistics, a few things, as a organization, one item we like to ensure that is growing, showing that we are investing in our infrastructure, is of course our capital assets. So to ensure that our capital assets aren't depreciating and getting older faster than we're investing in them. So that's one line, to ensure that it's we're reinvesting in our system and renewing our system by taking out the old depreciating assets and replacing them with newer ones. So that's one line we look at. So in regards to return on equity in the financials, one main driver of that is the numerator, which is the net income line. So that's a big driver. And so as net income may be staying stagnant or not going up as fast as the shareholder equity line, because as shareholder equity goes up, that puts downward pressure on your return on equity, since return on equity is net income divided by shareholder equity. So with our net income, these numbers are put together by an engineer and accountant in the utility world. So we are fairly conservative in our numbers. As we've mentioned, probably maybe 2 or 3 years ago during a business plan presentation, we did comments saying these are sort of conservative numbers. We don't like to sort of count the eggs that haven't hatched yet. So we put together our forecast, but then we often, as you can expect, try to improve on our forecast as the years go on. So numbers we always look at, well, I don't have the slide to put up, but if you look at the table in the document
before this, table 17, which shows these numbers, but the historical values from 2014 to 2020. The numbers that we look closely at is those two lines, the return on equity, and between, our 2014 value for return on equity was 7.69%. In 2020, it went up to 9.9%. So we are increasing that as time goes on. And that's something we'd like to continue and hover around that 9% line. The other line that we focus a lot on in our world, while it's not filled in on the forecast, is that return on equity regulated. So in table 17, we have a deemed, actually I can show that on our scorecard. So on our scorecard, we have a deemed regulatory return on equity of 9.36. So that's something we have to monitor very, very closely because the Ontario Energy Board monitors that very closely. And so when we did our cost of service back in 2014, our entire costs from capital, debt obligations, and expense obligations were analyzed by the Ontario Energy Board. At that time, the deemed regulatory return on equity provided was 9.36. The OEB looks at utilities and says thou shalt stay within 3% of that moving forward, plus or minus 3%. So we want to make sure that our deemed, our achieved regulatory return on equity does not go above 12.36 or below 6.36. So that's a slightly different value. It's not as quickly done on the audited financial statements to take net income divided by shareholder equity. This is one that's a stat that's specific to our sector. But with that said, that's something that we monitor very, very closely. And so we have been overachieving for the last 4 years on this stat from 2017 to 2020. So that's something we are proud of at Orangeville Hydro, but we do want to ensure we don't go above it. Because if we do go above the a few things, it'll just mainly mean that our if we go above, we'll have to go in for a very expensive cost of service application to the Ontario Energy Board once again. And when we do that, it can well, it's very costly, and then that's ratepayer money going to a rate application as opposed to investing in our system. So that's a stat we pay very close attention to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coco.
Councillor Andrews, go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening, Mr. Coco. Nice to see you as well. One of the things that I noticed in your report, in fact, again, it's always a pleasure to go through your detailed reports, a lot of reading and a lot of information to digest. But one of the pieces that I always like to compliment is, in fact, prudent, what I call human capital management. And in fact, you are operating a very lean but very successful machine, 19 full-time employees. One of the challenges that's existing not only in the private but public sector is, of course, maintaining your staff. What are some of your, not to say your secrets, but do you have a number of part-time staff that's also a part of your staff complements? Because again, I couldn't figure out where it was in the budget presentation that was presented, but maybe you can just give us some insight to that, please.
Yeah. Well, one of the ways we are able to keep our staff low is we work with industry associations very closely, mainly 3. So through the Electrical Distributors Association, the EDA, Utility Standards Forum, the USF, and Czech Group, Cornerstone Hydroelectric Concepts. Those 3 industry organizations are utility groups. And so we meet frequently at all levels of the organization, whether that be in operations, engineering, customer service, finance, and each one of those organizations takes would offset 1 or more staff each, because we're able to get economies of scale and efficiencies of scale by working with our peers. And so some working groups, Orangeville Hydro takes a significant role in to achieve one final product, and others we may have, due to resources, take a step back, but we get the benefits of that final product from the working group from other LDCs. We do outsource some things, like our utility locates used to be in-house, it's now outsourced. some other roles. We do have great third-party vendors that we've worked with over the years that also help to. It would just be too expensive for us to bring that in-house. So we do have third parties that we do work closely with as well. So those industry associations, and of course our great vendors that we work with throughout many years, help us keep our staff complement low.
Great. Thank you so much for that reply. Appreciate it.
And as much as the town is interested in dividends, what we have here is reliable, cost-effective energy, and that is something that every business in town and every resident of town is thankful to Mr. Coco and his team. So, Rob, thank you. I know your new manager of operations and engineering, Hilton Thomas. I've watched him join your group. He's been giving some excellent updates and reports on these asset management projects to the board of Orangeville Hydro, and you've got a great team there, Rob. So fantastic. And again, the focus is really on reliable, cost-effective energy, and we have some of the best here based on the scorecard comparing this LDC to every other LDC in Ontario. So well done. All right. Any other questions or comments, councillors, before we? So we'll thank you for your presentation, and all the best, sir. Do we need to have a motion here to approve this, folks? I think we do, don't we? So we better have a motion to. Or sorry, did you want to speak again, Mr. Coco? No. So we need a motion, I guess, to accept and approve the business plan for Orangeville Hydro. Can we have a motion, please? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Post. Any further comments? No, all in favor?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Coco. All the best.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Our next item is 11.3. This is Julianne Von Westerholt from MHBC Planning regarding 236 First Street. Ms. Von Westerholt, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Brown, members of council, staff, and members of the public. My name is Julianne Von Westerholt. I'm an associate with MHBC Planning, and I'm here this evening on behalf of our client, SHIP. The proposed official plan amendment and rezoning is required to include supportive housing as a permitted use among all other permitted uses for the subject property. In addition, site-specific regulations concerning the required parking and the location of existing structure in the front yard were also requested in the amending bylaw. This is a relatively straightforward request to add the supportive housing use as a retirement home, which is also a residential use, is already permitted for this site. The redevelopment of this site will adaptively reuse an existing building and its infrastructure, which efficiently uses the site that is currently underutilized. The proposed repurposing of this building will provide affordable and permanent housing to the town of Orangeville's most vulnerable people. This will help to address the affordable housing crisis in Dufferin County and the town of Orangeville. In short, what we're asking council is to decide if this residential use should be added to the list of permitted uses for the site, which is in line with the direction in the county's official plan, which encourages the redevelopment of commercial sites, such as this one, for the provision of affordable housing, in particular, service sites that are underutilized. We understand that there are members of the surrounding community that have expressed concerns with the proposed development. Much of this concern relates to the temporary use of the building over the last summer as an emergency shelter, which is not what is being proposed through the zone change, and concerns about safety as a result of the supported housing use and its future inhabitants. Zoning is about land use and not people, and the planning matters related to this application are therefore scoped to the aspects such as setbacks, parking, building height, etc., all of which have been addressed through the application, and none of these have changed through this redevelopment. In terms of concerns raised about the process so far, we confirm that the requirements for the Planning Act for the provision of notice of a development application were followed by the town of Orangeville. And in addition, our clients, SHIP, went above and beyond to dialogue and engage with the residents by hosting 3 different engagement meetings on November 3rd, 10th, and December 1st. Our clients have indicated that dialogue with the community will be ongoing and have provided an opportunity for area residents to join SHIP's advisory committee. Additionally, there was concern over the provision of a sidewalk along First Street. The town is looking into whether or not this should be considered in future budget discussions. But typically, the small number of units proposed will not be enough to trigger a new sidewalk along First Street. Should the town decide to provide a sidewalk in the future, SHIP would be supportive of this and would support a connection from their driveway to any such future public sidewalk. The provision of a sidewalk is not something that can be addressed by a private property owner through an official plan amendment or a zone change application. We support the staff recommendation to approve the applications and respectfully request your support for these applications, which will help to address the housing crisis in Dufferin County by providing permanent, affordable housing in a location that is supportable by official plan policies. Thank you very much. I'm available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. von Westerholt. Councillors, do you wish to ask any questions at this time? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move on to Ms. Nagoda. 11.4, this is a presentation from Leslie Nagoda, the Chief Executive Officer, as well as Thomas DeCarlo, Chief Financial Officer, Louise Kindry, a Board Chair, and Keith Ward, a Board Member of SHIP. Welcome to our meeting. I'll turn it over to you, Ms. Nagoda.
Thank you very much, and good evening. I'm going to actually speak on behalf of the SHIP delegation. So thank you, Mayor Brown and honorable members of council for having us this evening, and I will be brief. So on behalf of SHIP, we respectfully request and hope for your approval of the zoning bylaw and official amendment for 236 First Street. We do rely on town planners and our own planning consultants to comply with the requirements of the processes in place, and we believe that we have done just that. In fact, we believe that we have gone beyond any formal requirements, as we always do. We've undertaken additional dialogue, and regardless of the decision this evening, we will continue with this work. We do make efforts to be valued neighbors because we want to be valued neighbors. So unlike a private developer, we do plan to stay. So being a good neighbor is really important to us. And as Julianne mentioned, we're also working to set up an advisory committee with representation from the community, the neighborhood staff, clients, other community local stakeholders to continue the dialogue and to continue to partner with and in the community. And this step is not just in response to the rezoning process. We will continue for as long as our neighbors would like to participate. So just thank you for reviewing our application and thank you for your consideration.
Right, thank you, Ms. Nagoda. And I do want to underline, in all, the 3 years that I've been sitting on council, I haven't seen a comparable outreach to the community on an application such as this. You've done a remarkable job, and I want to thank you for that. Okay, moving on, we have a couple of delegates as well that wish to speak to this. Next is Melody Vella. Ms. Vella, go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Melody Vella. I'm one of the residents of Starview, and on behalf of the good people of Starview and the surrounding streets, we were deeply offended by the mayor's comments that we are not in support of affordable housing, which we are. What we are concerned about is having the right services and supports for the residents so that it doesn't impact our community as well as their residents. And we did not see that demonstrated this summer. We did feel that we were repeatedly dismissed by SHIP and yourself, and it is very concerning that a mayor would speak to the community that way. So with that said, we are just requesting additional safety or staff to handle the residents, and that has not been met with any type of concern for the residents and the community. So that is why we're repeatedly coming to you with these concerns. So there has been a number of police on site all summer For the 4 months that they were there was up to 70 calls, which I think is absolutely ridiculous, being that I'm a mother and I have children, just as many of the community members here. Even the residents had their own children witnessing the number of incidents that were occurring on site. So I don't think that it's unreasonable that we are asking for additional supports and services to make sure that their own residents and people that are going to be our neighbors are in good standing and that they have the supports that they need to be successful in life, which we completely, absolutely support. So that's where the concerns have been coming from.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Vella. And just to put my comments that you mentioned in context, you know, I sat through the first 2 meetings. I also sat through the public meeting on October the 4th. Town staff and SHIP had accorded themselves very well in all of this discussion. They did address the issues of safety. They did bring in a security guard on the property, and all of that now is water under the bridge. That use of the property is now ended, and we're looking forward now to a different type of use of the property. It is vacant now, and what SHIP is planning is building 25 affordable housing units to house those who are less fortunate. And they are also going to have staff on site. They are building offices in that same building. So I think they've addressed everything. And I as I said earlier tonight, I don't think I've seen an applicant with more outreach to the community than SHIP has.
I think had they addressed it from the beginning, there wouldn't be as much concern. The staff that's there is Monday to Friday during business hours. They're not there for the evening. We were given direction to call police. That is not a solution to helping people with serious mental health and addiction issues. No one wants to call police on people who are suffering. So they have not made assurances that they will have staff in the evenings or security. And so we are left to our own demise, as are their own residents. And I don't think that that's a fair position. Everything that they presented was very polished, very corporate, and it doesn't address the needs that we saw in person in practice. So that's where the mistrust and the concerns are coming from. And continually we have been dismissed, even by yourself, Mayor Brown. So that is very unfortunate given your position.
Right. Well, I have to correct you there because I have not dismissed it. I responded to a letter from a lawyer who we're about to hear from, whose letter was full of inaccuracies and painted town staff and the SHIP organization in a poor light. So my specific comments were after receipt of that letter, which I think was completely offside. So thank you very much, Ms. Vella. Councillor Taylor, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to side with the resident. I found your comments to be rude and condescending to the residents and inappropriate. That's all I have to say, but just to sit here and listen to you talk that way to the resident, when clearly that's not the case, I think it's inappropriate.
Well, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
All right, moving on. We've got 11.6, a presentation from Nadia. I'm not sure if it's Chamey or Chami. Miss Chamey or Chami, would you join us, please?
Hello, it's actually neither. It's Nadia Shami.
Chami, okay, my apologies.
So I do have a number of questions that I want to ask, but understanding that there is a time constraint here, I do want to obviously answer some that are now being taken in turn. So, Mayor, you have referenced that the letter that I sent you was full of inaccuracies. As a professional, I take offense to that. I'd like you to name some of them.
I don't have it in front of me right now, Ms. Chami, but
comments like that. Thank you. Next point. You received also several letters from the community, not just mine. So for you to say that your comments were in reference only to mine is inaccurate. And it's a way for you to cover, frankly, you're behind right now. Your comments in full, for those of you who are unclear, said, I will pull it up to quote you exactly. The fact that some well-to-do folks are looking down their noses at affordable housing is absolutely of no concern to me. As Melody stated, this comment has obviously insulted the character of the good residents of Mono who have voiced their concerns. You said that you have read all of the information, you have looked at all of the information that has been presented. You obviously have not considered their concerns and instead have attacked their characters. That is absolutely unacceptable, and we request a formal apology from you today. I will wait.
I will not be apologizing, so carry on.
Okay. You will not be apologizing. That will be noted, and that will be forever recorded as you having done that, and that's your choice. You had the opportunity here. Secondly, you have mentioned today that SHIP did an exemplary job of speaking to the community at large and reaching out far more than anybody else has in the past. They absolutely did not do that. That is an inaccuracy, sir. They had sent out a pamphlet to the residents of Mono far after planning of this site had begun. And the pamphlet that they had handed out was full of inaccuracies. They only began to bring those meetings because somebody had voiced to SHIP the concerns of the community and the plethora of letters that came as a result of absolutely no community involvement. So to say now that SHIP voiced a community involvement in a way that was above and beyond what they were expected to is an absolute inaccuracy, if we would like to use that word. So I urge you, as you had claimed that you read all of the material, I urge you to read it again, because it seems to you that you either A, have misunderstood it completely, or B, have missed some material. Now, back to the questions that I actually intended on asking today before, and frankly, not expecting that type of behavior tonight, although I probably should have. My question, first of all, is you mentioned security, and Melody spoke to that, saying that they would only be there until work hours were ended. You said that now that is a moot point because it is a different population in the building. It is absolutely the same management, however, and we do not trust that management. Prisons do not have that type of safety concern on a regular basis. To blame the fact that it was a shelter over the summer, that there were that many police calls, is not because of the residents. And I actually find that offensive on behalf of the residents. It's because of the mismanagement of SHIP. And we believe that SHIP will continue to mismanage the property, first and foremost because they've shown us that they have, and secondly, because we have absolutely no idea what is actually going to be going on in that property because there have been inconsistencies. So my question to you is, if this bill is passed, if the amendment is permitted, will you be having security measures required in place by SHIP, who have already said that they will act as landlords, and that anybody in the facility or outside of the facility who experience any safety concerns, in light of the fact that many of the individuals on the premise will be experiencing some sort of mental health issues, that the only calls will be to 911, what security measures will you have in place or will be required of SHIP?
Well, there is no assurance that everybody in this facility will have mental health problems. That's number one. So that's an inaccurate statement.
Do you know what SHIP does? Do you know what SHIP does?
I know exactly what they do. I know exactly what they do.
SHIP is not simply affordable housing.
By the way, you've got 2 minutes left, okay? So ask your questions. You've got 2 minutes.
So you can run the clock so that you can avoid answering any questions.
No,
questions, so you can avoid facing any.
I'm not a security expert, and I'm not going to ask. If you want to ask something else,
Mayor, though, who is approving a zoning bylaw, and you said you stood behind it completely, you absolutely should 100%. Be a security expert on this issue. You should know absolutely the security risks of this issue. My next question to you is, before the purchase of the property, or at the time of purchase of the property, was SHIP given an approval that this bill would be passed?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not? Okay, interesting. Considering the fact that you will not be apologizing to the people that you should be apologizing to, and considering the fact that you will not consider the security risks that are first and foremost the concern of the community, and not out of nowhere, because we lived through it this summer. That is all the questions I have, because they are not going to be answered, and they will not come to any resolution. It's clear that for whatever reason, ship is being pushed along regardless of the views of the community.
Well, the community is much larger than the folks on Starview, ma'am. We have an affordable housing crisis. We need help for these people.
And you have relegated them to a corner of Orangeville with absolutely no access to pedestrian traffic, or to knowing that only 20% of them will have vehicles. You have no access to them to buses, and you've relegated them to the outskirts of Orangeville.
This is not SHIP's first rodeo, ma'am. They own a number of properties. They know what they're doing.
That has nothing to do with any of my points. That has nothing to do with any of my points.
Thank you.
To speak to their abilities, they should have managed their property better this summer. So frankly, however many properties they have is of no concern to me.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Peterson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Ms. Shammy, excuse me. Could you tell me, did you link in with the town of Mono Council and bring your concerns to them, or has you and your group just brought them to Orangeville?
No, they've been brought to both Orangeville and Mono. So
I did speak to the mayor of Mono and asked that question, and the answer is no, you did not. So I would just suggest that in the future that if there's residents who have issues in a municipality, they should approach the municipality that they live in. It really is the best procedure. It was awkward. I certainly listened and did so with earnest to the residents and have great respect for them. But they really should be operating in the town that they pay taxes to, and that would be to Mono Council. So I think it would be helpful if you would link in with that council and have some discussions with them, please, ma'am.
But they were. All of the Mono Council were copied on all of the letters that all of you were copied on.
By yourself? Did you link in with them?
I did, yes.
Okay. There's
every resident copied every council member from Orangeville and Mono, as well as the MPP and the MP.
There's broken telephone here for sure. Anyway, it might be helpful for you to reach out to them on your own and have those discussions as well.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Peters.
I believe Councillor Post was first.
Oh, Councillor Post, go right ahead.
Thanks, Councillor Peters. Ms. Shammy, thanks for being here tonight, and to Melody as well. I'm sorry I don't have your last name in front of me. Thank you for being here to delegate as well. I have read all the concerns, and at the last meeting, I did bring up the idea of a sidewalk. I thought that it required one. I do still intend to bring that up at the appropriate time, which is in 12.2 on our agenda. So I am going to be looking for the support of my council to have a sidewalk constructed, because I think that pedestrian safety piece is going to be extremely important. So I have done some back and forth. I just wanted to make you aware that with our local town staff, I have done a significant amount of work to try and figure out what the best course of action would be going forward to make sure that the residents of this new development, if it is approved by our council, are taken care of and protected.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councillor Post. Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I think this entire conversation is a little more heated than it needs to be, first of all. But, to Councillor Post's point, I also support the active transportation piece, and this discussion's been going on longer than just this meeting. So, I take exception to the fact that we're being told that we're relegating people to a certain point in town and not addressing those concerns, because there is still time to address those concerns. And this was not a proposal that town council dreamt up and picked a spot remotely in town. This was a proposal that came from SHIP based on an underutilized building. So I think we have to keep that in context. And, any comparisons to jails, I think, need to be completely left out of the conversation.
It wasn't a comparison to a jail. It was a comparison to safety measures and the safety of the community at large, as well as residents of any particular building. It was not a comparison, and I would appreciate no mischaracterization of that.
Okay.
I believe the comment was that jails didn't have the same security issues that this building did, and I think that can be interpreted in a very wide manner.
Well, there was more than 70 police calls in a matter of 4 months. That is a safety concern. And obviously, jails are particularly of concern in those manners. So it would be a comparable in that even something where there are criminals living, we do not see that type of 911 calls and security issues and mismanagement. That is precisely my point, is the absurdity of the situation. If that's lost on you, please do not mischaracterize.
Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a couple comments. First of all, it was mentioned a couple of times that you had had this discussion with the town of Modo. I just want to make a comment regard to a comment made in the chat. Sending out documentation via email to councillors is not discussing it in an open, proper forum. So that is not considered having been discussed at a county, a council level. Okay, so just like you receiving, you giving an email to me, we hadn't discussed it in council, so that isn't reaching out to your council. So to piggyback on what Councillor Taylor said, I would strongly suggest that you ask to delegate to Mono Council, not via email. My other concern is I think it is getting a little heated. We're dwelling on what the property was before. We have to look forward to what's going on forward. Now, maybe Mr. Ward can answer this for me, but part of this application and this whole zoning application and everything else, is there anything in our bylaws that states that we have to address the security of an application? Because that's not what's before us. And then I know that you're really dwelling on that to the delegate, but that is something that is not part of this application process. Am I correct, Mr. Ward?
Through your worship to Councillor Sherwood, the matter at hand is a land use matter. It's a land use decision with respect to a proposed residential use. It's an affordable housing use. It's defined as supportive housing because there's going to be some support service elements interchanged with this supportive or this affordable housing use. The concerns with respect to safety and security are perceptions of behavior of occupants. And in a planning decision, the decision needs to be made on matter of fact. Matter of fact with respect to the proposed use, adherence to applicable policy framework. And on that basis, it looks at the use's appropriateness for the subject lands and its relationship with its surroundings. It does not look at behavioral elements of future inhabitants or occupants of that residential use. To start to characterize that in the evaluation of the planning matter at hand, it's not an appropriate matter to be considered in a planning evaluation.
Thank you very much for clarifying that, Mr. Ward.
Very good. Okay, any further comments, councillors, on 11.6? Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to be clear. I do think that SHIP has done a nice job here. I think they've done a nice job putting together something that is going to make a difference for the community and is going to help out a segment of the population that we absolutely need to help. That said, I think the concerns of the residents as you're going into Starview, it's been a rough go for them with what's been happening there, you know, in the short-term history of it. It's been confrontations and police calls, and it's been difficult to live there for sure. But I do agree with the rest of council, and that is moving forward, we've got high hopes for this property. We think that it's going to make a difference. We think that we have a solution to the security piece. And the reality is, even if we don't, even if there is issues moving forward, I think that we'll course correct as we go. And I think this is the correct path. I just want to be sympathetic and make sure that those residents who live in the front of Starview are heard. And we've heard their concerns, and I wouldn't want to be in that situation either. But I'm really hopeful that it's a new day, and we'll have a better environment for all of them, for the residents of that facility, and for those people that live there. So I just think it's important to share that.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Taylor, I just wanted to compliment you on what you've just mentioned. Well said. For those of us who have watched SHIP and their presentations, I feel most confident that this organization is going to do the right thing and operate in the right way. We've heard the voices of the members of that particular community, but as has been mentioned, and again, I'm just repeating what has been mentioned by other members of council, fluidity to the council that those particular members or those residents would end up having to communicate. There has been some disconnect. There is a formality that Councillor Sherwood had mentioned, and that should have been mentioned earlier on. And I too have had the conversations with the mayor of Mono as well. And in fact, again, just echoing what has been mentioned. So I'm confident of the management of SHIP and most impressed by the information that has been shared so far today.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Okay, that wraps up presentations. Now we'll move on to staff reports. We have 12.1. This is the Metrolinx Winter Maintenance Agreement, INS 2021-055. Could we have a motion, please, to approve this agreement? Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Peters. Any further discussion, councillors? All in favor? Thank you. Now we have 12.2. This is the item that has been spoken to tonight, 236 First Street, a recommendation that, let me just read it. This is the recommendation that this particular item, which is INS 2020-21-062, and that the official plan amendment and zoning bylaw amendment applications be approved, and that council pass a bylaw to adopt amendment number 129 to the official plan for the town of Orangeville to redesignate part of the east half of Lot 3, Concession 2, Town of Orangeville, County of Dufferin, municipally known as 236 First Street, from service commercial with special policy E8-11 to service commercial with special policy E8-.11 as amended to permit a supportive housing use. And the council pass a bylaw amending zoning bylaw 2290 as amended to rezone part of east half of Lot 3, Concession 2, Town of Orangeville, County of Dufferin, municipally known as 236 First Street, from service commercial C3 zone, special provision 24.41 to service commercial C3 zone, special provision 24.229 to permit a supportive housing use. May I have a motion on this, please? Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Post. Councillor Post, you wish to speak to this?
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As was brought up the last time that this proposal came to council, I guess for information purposes back a couple of months ago, I did at that point mention the need for a sidewalk to go from this proposed area over to connect it to First Street. Since then, I have done some walks along that area. I've observed the traffic that's there and the current situation of what the path is. And I have some concerns. I have some concerns that we have a population that's going in there that are going to really benefit from being down in the mall area, close to retail, close to shopping, close to grocery, and really no safe path to get there. I have reached out to town staff to talk about what options were. We also know that this is one of our busiest areas when it comes to vehicles per day traffic along that one stretch. Now, in reaching out to town staff, I am aware that it's not the obligation at this point of SHIP to take care of that construction, just with the nature of this type of development. But we are moving from a hotel, which is more of a transient use, into somewhere that's going to be people's homes. And I would really like to see us add on to our budget the construction of this sidewalk. Perhaps Mr. Kosielak or Mr. Ward can speak to the conversations that we've had. The budget does call for, or would be about $130,000 to add that piece in. But if we move forward with this development, I would really like to see that be a piece. We're going to have mums with children and strollers, and that path right now is just not a safe path for pedestrians, and I'd really like to see it made that way to move forward the idea of active transportation.
Mr. Kosielak, would you
Sure.
Weigh in here, sir.
Through you, your worship, the timing of this is good in that next week is, I believe, capital budget discussions. We did do an estimate of the cost to construct a sidewalk along this section of, primarily it's along First Street. And it is an expensive section of sidewalk to build because you're transitioning from basically a rural section with open ditches to an urban section where you have to control the drainage and build a barrier curb to protect pedestrians from the vehicles. It also would involve constructing a bit of a pedestrian handrail to keep pedestrians safe from the stormwater management facilities just to the west. Councillor Post is correct. The estimated cost was approximately $130,000. At this point, it is not included in the capital budget, but I did want to get the estimate out there for council should they want to consider it.
Thank you. Maybe we can have Mr. Ward weigh in as well. I mean, there's no requirement for council to include this, is there, Mr. Ward?
That's correct, your worship, and through you, there's no real clear demonstration that the need for this sort of venture is clearly tied to this development proposal. It would be too onerous to tag this on this development moving forward. With that said, it has a broader community benefit to it, to benefit the surrounding community in addition to the proposal by SHIP. So therefore, it'd be prudent for the town to consider this as a public initiative.
Very good. All right, Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I too have a concern about sidewalks, and I just wanted to preface this. If we're talking about this with Councillor Post's piece, I have been talking to Mr. Koslak about sidewalks in general in town. There is a backlog of sidewalk repairs that need to be done. We have orange paint all over town. I don't know if it's orange because it's Orangeville. We paint the town orange, but it is in dire shape, and there's a backlog. And if we're going to talk about sidewalks there, I think there's something larger that needs to come into play as we go through budget time. So just wanted to bring that forward to you now.
Right. Okay. So, Councillor Post, I mean, I think most of council's probably aligned with you that this is something to consider, but I don't know that we should muddy the water with this particular application right now, but maybe to put it off until a budget discussion, which is coming up in the next few weeks. Councillor Post, go ahead again, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. No, I don't necessarily want to tie it to the approval of this. As you saw, I was quite happy to second the motion that's on the floor. I would just like to have this included tonight as well as a separate motion that we move forward and add this $130,000 to the capital budget, which we can then discuss at budget time. But I'd like to see it on the table at that point as well. So once this motion moves off the table, I would really like to put that one forward.
Very well. Councillor Andrews.
Okay, thank you very much. Very quickly, I just was very appreciative of Mr. Ward's comment about a community initiative. It's not just the SHIP development that is being discussed. Well, it is, but the benefits of having that sidewalk would also benefit the restore, the community, you know, and some of the other activity that's happening in that area. So I think for consideration come budget deliberation, especially under capital, would be prudent, but I think that we have to move forward, obviously, with the decision that's in front of us this evening.
All right, councillors. If there's no other further comments, we do have a motion on the floor. That is to approve this development. All in favor? Very good. That motion passes unanimously. So let's deal with Councillor Post's suggestion that we include $130,000, up to $130,000. To be included in our capital budget for creation of a safe walkway in this area. Again, we don't have any drawings, we don't know exactly what it is, and we don't have a firm quotation, but we have to believe Mr. Koslak, with all his experience, has put a fairly tight number on this. So do we have a seconder for Councillor Post? Councillor Peters? Any further discussion, councillors, before we vote on this? Councillor Taylor, you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just want to make sure, and Councillor Post, I do think this is a good idea, and I'm supportive. I just want to make sure, though, that we still have the opportunity. What we're voting on is to bring this forward to discussions within the budget. We're not actually voting to say we're going to pound cement in here and get this thing done. What we're talking about a discussion we're going to have in a couple of weeks. Correct?
That is the intent, I believe. Councillor Post.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yep. Exactly. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So without further ado, all those in favor? Very good. Opposed? No. That's unanimous as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Councillor Post and Councillor Peters. Moving on to 12.3. This is a report regarding Survey Lane. And for those who are listening in, Survey Lane runs, I guess it's west off of 3rd Street and connects with 2nd Street. There was discussion earlier this year about whether we should be paving that laneway, and a suggestion was made that perhaps closing it up and just turning it into a grassed area, a walkway, rather than having it as a roadway. And council had agreed that was probably a better route to go. So that's what we're discussing tonight. And let me just read that report. So I guess this is just a report to be received tonight. So it's INS 2020-063, but essentially it talks about closing up the laneway and grassing it in. Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Koselek, I suppose it would be. I understand the recommendation is just to receive the report, but the last paragraph does note that staff's position is counter to the direction that council gave last year. So I'm just wondering if it's just going to hang in limbo if we receive the report and not do anything in terms of discussing staff's position on it.
Yes, through you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Peters. When and John Lackey's here as well, he can probably speak to it better than I. When we did the public consultation related to the potential closure of the lane, we found there was residents that accessed their backyards and had a number of sheds that used the lane that wouldn't actually be able to access their yards if the lane was closed and turned into a trail. And at I believe it was the 2nd Street end, there was a doctor's office that expressed the need to utilize the lane to access their parking area. It came to light to staff that there are a number of things at play. There's absolutely no need to repave the lane and turn it into sort of a new condition, for sake of a better word, because there is very little traffic on it. But there are people that use it, and in our opinion, it would be a challenge for those people if we were actually stop it up and close it and turn it into a walkway or trail. And that's why perhaps it wasn't the right format. Perhaps we should have recommended that it stay the same, but the intent of the report is that there be no changes to the laneway, that we continue to allow vehicular access, and that just minimal maintenance be done on the laneway to keep it operational and safe.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I think if I remember, I think it was an ask of something like $70,000, I believe, and that was what caused the questioning of whether or not we needed to spend that kind of money or not. Councillor Sherwood and then Councillor Peters again.
Yes, Your Worship. I too am a little concerned about what the recommendation is, because council was quite clear that they wanted this to not remain the way it is. I'm not in favor of putting any money towards maintenance of that lane. It was quite clear that we wanted it to be a trail. My issue is I really have my doubts that people cannot access their backyard. Surely to goodness, they have access to their backyard through the front of their properties, just like I have access to my backyard through the front of my property. I don't have the luxury of being able to come through the back. So I don't know if I really, I don't know if I'm really sold on that, you know, they can't access their backyards. I tend to disagree with that, but I am a little concerned about the recommendation because I'm not in favor of it staying the way it is. I wanted to see it go through with what council had directed. So I don't know how we go about this.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Sherwood. Councillor Peters.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question, if you don't mind, through you to Mr. Koselak or Mr. Lackey. If we go the route that is suggested in terms of saving the capital expenditure but leaving the road condition as is, at what point does it become an issue for insurance or level of service? You know, obviously, without doing a level of maintenance or repair on that section, at some point, that capital item will just come back to us. Or there may be insurance claims or concerns along that stretch. So just hoping you can provide some more information on that.
Sure. Through your worship, yes, like any lane or road, it does go through inspections associated with the minimum maintenance standards to ensure that it receives meets the standards, say for snow plowing, potholes, that sort of thing. At the end of the day, the standard for a lane with that much traffic on it is relatively low. It could even revert to something that's just surface treated. It doesn't have to be a paved laneway with, you know, that's up to the standards of other lanes around town that everybody has their backyards or driveways on.
Okay.
Yes.
Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too am concerned about the potential of additional costs, and I know that many of us that sit on council here had expressed that previously. Mr. Koselak, if I'm not mistaken, the houses to the south of that particular area, are they not linked townhomes where it would be very difficult for those particular property owners to have access from the front to the back? Is that where this particular comment comes from? An observation as for access?
Through your worship, perhaps Mr. Lackey could speak to it better than I. The issue was with the properties to the north of the laneway.
Right. Mr. Lackey.
Yes, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Andrews, it is the homes that are on the south side of 2nd Street. There are a number of link homes that are immediately south of that laneway that are unable to access their rear property line from the front of their house. And those are the comments or the location that we receive comments from the residents about gaining access to their rear property. I would also make the comment that this is not unlike Rocky Lane, where there was an attempt to get rid of Rocky Lane a number of years ago. That was not stopped up and closed. It has continued to be used by a few residents, and we provide minimal maintenance on that laneway, approximately $2,000 or $3,000 a year.
Mr. Lackey, there's a comment there about a doctor's office. What doctor's office are we talking about? It needs
there
access
is a clinic. Yes, Your Worship. There is a new clinic, AM clinic, on the eastern end of the laneway. Right. It is the old Don Cullen survey office.
Yes.
And he uses the laneway to gain access into the rear of his property. If we closed it, we would have to get into an encroachment agreement with that individual, or some form of use agreement with that individual. That presents challenges for us as well. Hence our opinion that we should just leave the laneway as is. I hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks. As I remember looking at this, I don't think there was any intention to stop access for that particular clinic. It was really from that point further west. But those were my thoughts at the time. I thought we would continue to give access to the rear of that building. All right, any further questions here, councillors? So
I see the hand of the, sorry, I see the
yeah.
hand of the clerk has been up.
Right. So Madam Clerk, and then Councillor Peters, did you have your hand up again? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, yes, if I can just provide some clarification as it relates to procedure, just following up on Councillor Peters' question. So tonight you could take the vote on receiving the report. If it's council's wish to follow the direction that's in the report that's before you, you do need to reconsider the motion that was before you previously, because it did give specific direction as it related to the stopping up and closing of Survey Lane. And then it had, and that a site access agreement be considered for the continued use of that portion of Survey Lane that abuts 59 3rd Street to facilitate access to their parking lot, and that Survey Lane be repurposed as a multi-use trail. So if you vote on receiving the report first tonight, and then if it's council's desire to follow the direction that's within the report that's before you tonight, you need to first reconsider that particular resolution. And then you could put another vote on the floor with respect to that same resolution. And then if you're not in favor of proceeding that way, you would vote in opposition to it. And then that will clear it off the table, so to speak. Okay?
Right. Okay, so councillors, I guess we need to have a motion here to receive this report. And then if a councillor wants to make a motion to rescind the previous direction to staff, that is something we can consider. So could we have a motion to receive this report, please? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? So now we're at a point here where we have agreed to stop Survey Lane to provide access to the medical clinic. That was part of the previous motion, as the clerk has provided to us. I'm all for improving our trail system. I think that's the direction that we had given previously. So does anybody wish to challenge that at this point? Seeing none. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. 12.4, transit terminal and route structure update. So there's some interesting information for council and for town staff here. This provides us with an update on what is planned for the Edelbrock Center. Mr. Lackey, did you want to give us a Coles Notes version here on where we're at?
Yes, Your Worship. Where we're at, and it will happen tomorrow, in fact, is we will be receiving quotes for the engineering design of the transit terminal. It will take us perhaps till the middle of the month to review those and select a consultant, at which point we'll proceed forward with the design of the terminal, seek approvals. As well, we are looking at receiving by the end of this month the route structure information, where we'll look at going to additional routes or hybrid routes, offline type loop routes. So we'll use that information as well in the design of our new facility. And having said that, we're hoping that we'll get approvals early in the spring and we'll get construction started, and we would have a new terminal by August of next year for implementation.
Very good, thank you. So the recommendation is that the report, Transit Terminal and Route Structure Update, INS 2021-064, be received. Can we have a motion to receive this, please? Councillor Taylor, or sorry, Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Taylor. Any further comments? All in favor? Thank you. All right, moving on to 12.5. This is the Sustainable Orangeville Annual Report. And just let me get it open here. And it's a recommendation that report CMS 2021-026, Sustainable Orangeville Annual Report 2021 be received. And the council received the 2022 Sustainable Orangeville Committee Work Plan, and that the balance of the 2021 committee budget funds of approximately $20,000 be transferred into the Environmental Reserve Fund for future sustainability projects. Councillor Peters, did you wish to speak to this at all, being the chair of that committee?
Thanks, Mayor Brown. I think the report just speaks to the activities that we were able to continue to undertake in 2021, which were still limited due to COVID impacts. Obviously, we only had one tree planting in this year, as you heard from CBC. A number of other initiatives couldn't be brought to fruition, and that's why there's sort of a surplus there. But luckily, the committee created that Environmental Reserve Fund, I believe it was 2 years ago. And so that money is still dedicated to environmental projects and, to their completion within the town. So I think the highlights were probably the same as last year. We had another successful community garden year. We had a successful urban harvest, again, with the recovery of fruit trees and vegetables within town. The food bank did very well with their community garden as well. And you'll see a few bat boxes going up along the new trail by the Shoppers Drug Mart along Broadway there, which is another initiative that was brought to us by a member of the public. So anyway, that's sort of the high level, and next year's work plan looks very similar.
Great, thank you. So can we have a motion to receive the 2021 annual report, the 2022 work plan, and also the recommendation that $20,000 be transferred into the Environmental Reserve Fund? Motion, please. Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any further comments, councillors? No. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to 12.6. This is the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee Annual Report. Just let me open it up, please. This is a recommendation that report CPS 2021-087, the Equity, Diversity and Inclusion Committee Annual Report, be received. Councillor Post, did you wish to speak to this at all, or?
Yeah, again, it's pretty self-explanatory. The majority of the work that we have planned to do in 2022 is stuff that we already discussed at the previous meeting when we asked you for money. So we want to move forward with our strategic plan and really just make sure that equity, diversity, and inclusion is top of mind in our town.
Right. Can we have a motion to receive this report, please? Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Andrews. Any further comments or questions? All in favor? Thank you very much. Moving on to 12.7. This is a regulatory bylaw work plan review update, and the recommendation is that report CPS 2021-085 regarding the regulatory bylaw review work plan be received, and that staff continue with the completion of the review of the following bylaws in 2022: property standards, vehicle for hire, tow truck licensing, election signs, and delegation of authority. And should council wish to expand the work plan to include review of the following bylaws in 2022, including animals, parks bylaw, closing times, lawn watering, traffic, including encumbering highway, road occupancy, sale of goods, Montgomery Village, topsoil removal, and if so, that funds be allocated in the 2022 operating budget. So just as a recap, talk to our town clerk. So those top items are planned for 2022. If council's wishes to have further work, they're going to need additional human resources to carry out that work. So, councillors, can we have a motion to receive this? Councillor Peters, seconded by Councillor Post. Further questions or comments? Councillor Peters.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm assuming we need to decide on the 2022 portion of the work, and given the length of the list of bylaws that certainly this group has brought up and potentially future groups will bring up, when you look down the list over the next decade, there are things that won't be brought up for 5, 6, 7 years. And I think accelerating these and trimming them and making them more efficient should be a priority. Understanding that the budget discussions could still undo this, similar to the sidewalk motion we discussed earlier. I would vote in favor of allocating the extra work in 2022, going through the budget discussion, have a more fulsome conversation about it. And if it remains, obviously that would advance the work. And should we determine otherwise, then so be it.
So this would be a direction to the town clerk to prepare a budget number for that work. that
For
what you're suggesting?
inclusion, yeah, in the discussions for 2022, yes.
Okay. So, can we have somebody second Councillor Peters' suggestion? Councillor Taylor. All right, Madam Clerk, is that sufficient for you for direction to bring as part of your budget presentation that additional work in 2022?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, what we will ask is we'll include on the agenda just consideration of including the $87,000 for that work to continue in 2022, and council can discuss it at that time.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further comments or questions, council? No, all in favor? Very good, thank you. Moving on to 12.8. This is a report on new businesses in Orangeville. For those who have started new businesses during the pandemic, bravo and congratulations on a bold move. The report CMS 2021-029 dated December 6, 2021 be received. Can we have a motion to receive this? Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Post. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. As I have repeated this, whenever updates are provided to members of council and members of the public, I'm always enamored by those who commit to our community. We see the number of new businesses that have opened up during this period of time, 17. We have others that will be doing the same in 2022. The resiliency and the tenacity and the commitment is something that I really commend these business owners. So thank you very much for committing to our community and the benefits our community will have for hopefully years to come.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to say that it's quite pleasing to see the businesses opening, especially during these times. Being a council member on the BIA, we are very fortunate to say, for our downtown area, we only have 2 vacancies. So our community has fared pretty well as through this pandemic. A lot of downtowns can't say that they have 2 vacancies. So. Congratulations to any business owner that's willing to take it on during these times.
Right. Very good. Okay, councillors. So just vote on receiving that report. All in favor? Very good. Okay, moving on to correspondence. We've got 13.1, 13.2, and 13.3. Can we have a motion to receive those correspondence, please? Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Peters. Any comments on those items, councillors? All in favor? We have a number of committee and board minutes to be received, 14.1 through 14.6, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Committee, Heritage, Men's Homelessness, and Orangeville Library. We have a motion to receive those board minutes. Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Any further comments? All in favor? Thank you. Notices of motion prior to meeting, we have none. Are there any notices of motion at the meeting? No. Any new business? Councillor Post, and then Councillor Sherwood, and then Councillor Andrews. Go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure if this is the right spot to bring it up or if I should have brought it up in notice of motion, but I have had a resident reach out to me and brought to my attention that the extension that we had made to our burning times, our outdoor burning times, which, as you recall, we did quite a while ago, is set to expire December 31st. So as of right now, we had extended the burn permit time to be from noon till 11 p.m. That portion is set to expire December 31st. I was just wondering, as I'm here at council, if there is any interest from the fellow councillors to extend that, or if you feel that we've kind of hit the maximum of how long we wanted to do that. Just wanted to see if there was any desire to bring it back up for any extensions on that. Otherwise, it is set to expire December 31st and will revert back to the previous times.
Councillors, any thoughts? Or will we? There's a sunset on that, Councillor Post. So, Councillor Taylor, you're muted, sir.
I've been so good for so long too.
I have no issue with this request. I think we should be encouraging residents to do things outside of their homes. I guess the only piece is, and I did get the same request, and I appreciate Councillor Post bringing this forward. We probably should ask our local fire department what their thoughts were, and candidly, I didn't do that prior to this meeting, but I can tell you, outside of asking them, which I think we should do, I think we should just pass it. But I'm wondering if we should wait and see what Mr. Morden or Mr. Richardson thinks of that, and provided they don't have any issue, I'd prefer we went ahead. Oh, now you're muted, sir.
Councillor Peters, go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I'm going to respectfully disagree. I sort of saw this as a bit of an interim measure. I think the work that went into the original burn bylaw would have accounted for appropriate hours and reducing exposure and that kind of thing. So I don't see the need to extend it. I think a lot more activities are available to people, and I'm happy to let it expire.
Okay, Councillor Sherwood.
I'm going to recommend to my fellow councillor that perhaps you put a notice of motion for the next meeting and we discuss it further then when we have an opportunity to have our fire chief here for more information.
Councillor Post.
I just through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. Landry, I don't think we have another regular council meeting between now and the expiry of this. Am I correct in that? I think it's just budget meetings now, correct?
You are correct.
So when it comes to the bylaw kind of just ending on December 31st, is there a way to put an extension in until our next meeting where we can discuss it further?
That with the leave of council, you could introduce that this evening by extending it, saying that you're doing so because of its time sensitive nature. So you could extend it to a certain period in January if that was council's wish. But you have to waive the procedures to introduce it tonight based on it being time sensitive first.
Madam Clerk, can you tell us what our council schedule is in January?
I certainly can, Mr. Mayor, if you just give me 1 minute, please. So you do have a council meeting on January the 10th. And then again on the 20th.
Councillor Post.
I should say, sorry, Mr. Mayor, on the 10th and the 24th. Missed the 4th there. Yeah.
Councillor Post, what's your wish?
If we could extend it until the 24th, and I would ask for us to be able to vote on that tonight, that would give us appropriate time to have consultation with the fire department and have it back to council for that date for a vote.
Okay. So first of all, we need to ask leave of council to hear that this evening. Can we have a motion to waive the time requirement on that? Councillor Post, second by Councillor Sherwood, all in favor? Okay, so the motion, Councillor Post, is that we provide an extension to the existing amended fire permit, fire pit permit bylaw until January the 24th, correct?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just because January 24th, you will be meeting at night, I would just suggest that you go to the 25th of January.
Very good.
January
25th. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right, folks. Do we have a seconder of Councillor Post's motion? Councillor Taylor? Any further comments? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor Peters is opposed. Thank you, councillors. So new business. I'm sorry, Councillor Sherwood and then Councillor Andrews. Go ahead.
I believe Councillor Andrews was ahead of me. No? Okay. I just wanted to let the public know that the 2022 Heritage Orangeville calendar is now available. So you should be able to pick that up at most of the municipal facilities, whether it be Town Hall, the library, at our arenas, and of course our tourism site. But if anybody needs to get one either personally delivered or sent by mail, I encourage anyone to email heritage@orangeville.ca or contact the municipal office and ask to speak to the Heritage Committee Secretary, and we'll make sure you get one. You won't be disappointed.
Yeah, I had a look at it today, Councillor Sherwood. It's very high quality. So well done to the Heritage Committee on that. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very quickly, I would like to thank Family Transition Place FTP for hosting today the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. We had a number of members of our community who were there, including members of council. It was a very touching ceremony and one that I think all of us are proud to at least be a part of, but at the same time, the impact of that particular event 32 years ago still has lasting impact on all of us and members of our community and members of the province of Quebec too as well. The second thing I'd like to just echo is our sincere condolences to Martha Rogers' family. Martha Rogers was the Director of Education for the Upper Grand District School Board who passed away unexpectedly this weekend. And of course, her impact to the education community is very well known. And again, the number of schools that we have in our community, in particular, secondary and elementary schools, our thoughts are with her family, but also the extended education family as well.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Councillor Sherwood, do you have your hand still up, or do you? No. All right. I have one other piece of business, and I was made aware of the sale of the Mill Creek Pub recently. Mr. Don Beatty, who's been a member of our community for many years, supporter of the BIA, and has run a very well-respected restaurant here in Orangeville. Lots of important events have been held there that I've been part of, and it's an awesome facility. I wish Mr. Beatty and his family all the best as they move on to the next chapter of their lives, but I just wanted a heartfelt thank you from the community for that great facility and restaurant that we've all enjoyed over the years. Councillor Taylor, do you have your hand up, sir?
I do, sir. Thank you. Just a few things to share with you. Two are Theatre Orangeville related, and one is the Christmas Carol will soon be opening, and everyone should be attending that. Ticket sales are going very well. They are not going to be filling that facility to capacity for the shows, so everyone should feel very safe. You have to wear a mask while you're there, but please bring your family and go to that show. It'll be excellent. And the secondary thing is that theater is something that needs to be fundraised for. And if you were to go to the Theatre Orangeville page, you can participate in a 50-50 draw. And last I checked, the 50-50 draw was about $6,500 to you would be your portion of it. So it's fairly big. And my last comment is Christmassy as well. And thank you to council for your support last weekend. Majority of you were at the opening for Christmas in the Park for my beloved Optimist group. And we're certainly proud of what was put forth with the lights as they went up. I can honestly say, I mean, I've been with it for 20 years now. I think it's the best it's ever looked. And maybe it looks the best because we had time last year because it wasn't as big of a deal to be able to fix some of the displays and have some new things. So please go with your family and walk around and enjoy it. It's really spectacular, and kudos to Ray Osmond and his team because the improvements that they made to that park since we've had it last, there's paved walkways, and I know we're going to have lighting at some point. It really does look tremendous, and yeah, it's something all of us who live here can be proud of. So that's just wanted to share that.
Nice to get back to Orangeville's family tradition of attending the park. So
agreed.
Thank you to you and your team at Optimist Club, Councillor Taylor. All right, moving on. Question period. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Bernardo, is there anyone on the line?
Through you, Your Worship, I currently don't see anybody on the line, but my Teams is jumping up and down on me a little bit, so perhaps we can just give 10 or 15 seconds. If there is anybody, unmute, and if you're on your phone, *6 to unmute.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, too, while we're waiting for that, it is because I just missed it. I know you did speak about not challenging the item with respect to 12.3, so I just want to make sure that I understand what council's intention is as it relates to Survey Lane.
It status quo, ma'am.
Meaning that you're not going to proceed with council's original latest direction to stop up and close?
We are proceeding to stop up and close. That is correct. That is the direction.
I just wanted to make sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
With the exception of the medical clinic at, I believe it's 59 3rd Street, and that was part of that report, was to leave that portion of the laneway open so that they could access their parking. All right, hearing nobody on the line, we'll move on to bylaws. We've got a number of bylaws here. I'll just read them off quickly. A bylaw to adopt amendment number 129 to the official plan. A bylaw to amend zoning bylaw number 2290 as amended with respect to part of east 1/2 of Lot 3 Concession 2, municipally known as 236 First Street, Services and Housing in the Province, application OPZ 2021-01. A bylaw to authorize the entering into and execution of a winter maintenance agreement with Metrolinx for the provision of winter maintenance services. A bylaw to amend bylaw 021-219 to confirm appointments to various boards and committees. And a bylaw 19.5, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council of the town of the corporation of the town of Orangeville at its regular and closed council meeting held on December 6th. We have a motion for all of those bylaws. Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All in favor? And a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Post. All in favor? Thank you, folks. Have a nice evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good evening, folks.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.